What is up my friends, it's RJ here, and the title of this video is should you buy a 2012 MacBook Pro in 2020? Yes, because believe it or not, we are only 40 something days away from the birth of a brand new year. It's just crazy to think about how fast time flies by these days. Anyways, I've been using the 13-inch Retina 2012 MacBook Pro for approximately 7 years now. I picked this up in my second year of university, brand new, and 7 years later it still runs like a champ. It got me through undergrad, it got me through post-grad, and now it's getting me through YouTube grad. In this video, I'll be discussing all the pros and cons of the 2012 MacBook Pro, whether its performance is still good enough as a multimedia consumption machine, whether it can still edit raw photos and 4K videos, and is it still good enough for gaming and just general web browsing. If it's your first time here on the channel, please do leave a like down below, subscribe to the channel because that would go a long way in helping me out, and I would really appreciate you guys for it. So the question is, should you still pick up the late 2012 MacBook Pro in late 2019 going into 2020? So without further ado, let's get right into it. Let's refresh our memory on the specs really quickly since it's been a while. This is the 13-inch Retina late 2012 MacBook Pro. The display has a native resolution of 2560 by 1600, which works out to 227 pixels per inch. The Retina display is really good and it gets plenty bright even 7 years later. This model has a 2.5 GHz Intel Core i5 processor with 8 GB of onboard memory. This is the lowest possible tier and it only comes with a baseline storage of 128 GB. But even in 2012, I think that was a crime. Storage is clearly not enough, but I run all of my work through an external hard drive, so it hasn't been too daunting. I bought this MacBook brand new in 2012, and at that time it was a lot of money for a university student such as myself. But luckily for me, 7 years later, and I haven't had any major issues with this MacBook. Not once in the past 7 years did I take it into the Apple Store for any issues, and I didn't even purchase AppleCare with it. The only replacement that I did have to make was the charger, since it did break down due to wear and tear, but that's to be expected. Also, the battery life on this MacBook has gone to crap, but more on that a little bit later. The metal unibody on this Mac is on par with modern day MacBooks in my opinion. It looks really slick. It's featuring a full-size backlit keyboard with ambient light sensors that have some really good travel to them. Right below the keyboard, we have Apple's infamous multi-touch trackpad for precise cursor control. You should be aware though, this MacBook is a lot thicker than modern day MacBooks, weighing in at exactly 3.57 pounds. If you do use your laptops when you are out and about, then lugging this thing around, you will definitely feel the weight after a while, but it does come with some advantages. After 2015, Apple completely became obsessed with the idea of a thinner form factor for most of their products. They completely stripped their laptops of any useful ports, they made it thinner and lighter, but in the process eliminated the MacBook of its practicality. Luckily for me, this is the 2012 MacBook Pro, so at that time Apple still kept all their useful ports intact, so I never had to go through what a lot of new MacBook users experience with the D word. And by the D word, I mean dongles. On the left, you'll find a MagSafe 2 power port, which in my opinion, Apple should have kept on their newer models because it's just a really great feature that they should have carried on. We also have 2 Thunderbolt ports, a USB 3.0 port, and a headphone jack port. Over on the right, we have another USB 3.0 port, an HDMI port, and here's the kicker, an SD card slot, which I find myself using every day just to edit and make these videos. You may have noticed that there is no Ethernet port or a disk drive. Apple removed that after the mid-2012 MacBook Pros, but in my opinion, I don't think anybody really uses that anyway, so that was a good move on Apple's part. Your biggest concern with buying an older MacBook is probably performance, and rightfully so. But you might be surprised to learn that this MacBook still runs the latest version of macOS. I'm currently running Catalina 10.15 and it runs like a charm without any stutters or lags. If you're wondering with the upgrade to Catalina, if you get Apple Sidecar, I'm sorry to burst your bubble, Apple decided that MacBooks only newer than 2016 will get Apple Sidecar. I'm not sure why Apple does this because clearly the machine is capable of running it, but I guess Apple does this to get us to upgrade to newer MacBooks. The Intel Core i5 processor has no trouble running basic applications as well as web browsing being lightning fast. Things like Microsoft Office and media streaming is a breeze. God knows how many lab reports I've written on this MacBook over the past 7 years. If you're running more intensive applications like Adobe Photoshop, Lightroom, or even Final Cut Pro, then you'll be fine for the most part. All of my editing is done on this laptop and I never really run into any serious issues. If you are looking to edit video on this computer, just run the storage on an external hard drive like I do, and you shouldn't run into any stutters or lag. I recently edited an entire 18-minute 1080p video regarding the Google Pixel 4 XL. A lot of it was shot in 4K and it was compressed down to 1080p, and I didn't run into any major issues. Rendering time did take about an hour and a half though, but to be fair, this is an older processor and it only has 8GB of RAM, and for an hour and a half I think that's not that bad. If you guys do want to watch that video, a link to it is right here. I don't really game much anymore unless it's mobile gaming, then I will play it every now and then. But I did used to play a ton of League of Legends on this MacBook Pro, and for the sake of this video, I did reinstall it to show you guys how it runs. It's fair to say that you can't expect much with the integrated Intel graphics, though League of Legends was surprisingly good. I was averaging around 50 to 60 FPS, of course on the lowest rendering of settings, and graphics cranked all the way down. So if you are into gaming on the move, then the 2012 MacBook Pro won't be a great choice. I haven't installed anything extra like an SSD into this MacBook Pro. Everything is just like how I bought it 7 years ago, so it is completely stock. There is no SSD replacing the stock 128GB mechanical hard drive, which in my opinion isn't that bad. Booting up the laptop is surprisingly quick. It takes about 30 seconds to boot up and start running. Apps open up rather quickly considering that this is a 7-year-old stock laptop and there is virtually no wait time waking up this laptop from sleep. So it doesn't really lag behind recent MacBooks in that department. Within the last couple of years though, the battery life has gone to complete. Everywhere I go, I have to make sure I do carry my charger with me, or else the laptop dies within an hour to an hour and a half. Even when I'm doing light work such as word processing or just a little bit of Photoshop. Obviously I can replace the battery, but I chose not to because I don't want to invest any more money into a really old laptop, because I do have my eyes set on the new 16-inch MacBook Pro, so I am saving up towards that. It's going to be a breeze editing 4K footage on that device as opposed to the 2012 MacBook Pro, where I do experience a lot of stutters and lags editing 4K footage. So in conclusion, is it still worth picking up the 2012 MacBook Pro going into 2020? Well, it's more than adequate enough to perform some basic tasks such as web browsing, some light gaming, word processing, and it'll even surprise you with some video editing. If you are a college or a university student who recently got their laptop maybe stolen or are just looking for a cheap replacement, then the late 2012 MacBook Pro will be more than adequate enough to get you through college. You can probably pick up this MacBook Pro for around $300 used if you do look hard enough on like Craigslist or maybe Kijiji. So hopefully my 7 years of experience with this MacBook Pro has come in handy for you guys and you guys found this video useful. And I'm probably going to be keeping this for at least the next 6 to 12 months. So yeah, it's going to have to last me. If you guys did stick around this long, then do subscribe to the channel because hey, why not? Leave a like on this video and make sure you share this video with somebody who might find this video useful. As always guys, thank you so much for watching and don't forget to flex with your tech.